I'm Tracy Sabol. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, call to action. Israel activates reserve troops after Hezbollah targets Tel Aviv for the first time. We have analysis of the escalating tensions in the Middle East. Taking a stand. Why the Vatican Secretary of State directs sharp criticism towards the United Nations. The right stuff. A two-page letter by a well-known saint is up for auction. We learn more from Dr. Matthew Bunson. And getting caught in the net. Pope Francis reminds the faithful that the devil can tempt us even through our own computers. We'll explain. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. Our top story tonight, tensions are reaching a boiling point in the Middle East as Hezbollah launches dozens of rockets into Israel, including into Tel Aviv, for the first time ever. Air raid sirens rang out in Tel Aviv as Israel intercepted the long-range projectile. This comes amid an intensifying exchange of fire as Israel prepares for a possible ground operation in Lebanon. Meanwhile, the Israeli military is activating reserve troops to respond to the escalating confrontations. The United Nations says more than 90,000 people have been displaced following Israeli strikes in Lebanon. Pope Francis responded to the violence in the region, calling on the international community to end the escalation, saying it is, quote, unacceptable. Now we turn now to Simone Leiden, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East. Simone, great to be with you today. Israel, as you mentioned, has called up reserves, and now military officials say that they are preparing for a possible ground operation in Lebanon. What would that look like, and how would that change the trajectory, that is, of this conflict?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you as well. I think we can look to, for the answer to that question, we can look to the recent statement by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, where he said that one of the goals of this war was to be able to move the people, the Israeli citizens who had to flee the north on October 7th, to allow them the security to return to their homes, which they have not been at for now almost a year. So because they've been under threat and under attacks ever since by Hezbollah, launching attacks through rockets and other means, from Lebanon, from southern Lebanon. So this is really a line in the sand by the Israelis saying, we are going to return our citizens to their homes. And that's really their goal. And so this is really the question mark. Is this something that Hezbollah will allow or not? And given the extreme successes that Israel has seen so far in a fairly short period of time, that have surprised many watchers, people who have been watching this situation in Lebanon now for years. It's been very surprising how quickly they've achieved such major successes.
Simone, I want to ask you about this escalate to de-escalate approach with Hezbollah. Explain to us more what that is, and is that an effective approach?
Well, I think that the United States has shown that appeasement is not a successful approach. So perhaps this Israeli approach of escalate to de-escalate will turn out to be more effective, showing that really shows of strength, shows of demonstrations of power, and really showing that we will do whatever it takes to return our citizens to their homes. So I think really the message from the Israeli side has been stop attacking us, stop launching your rockets, stop trying to kill Israeli citizens. And that is really the goal that they're looking for. So in terms of de-escalation, it's really up to Hezbollah to stop their attacks. And the question is, will they? And that remains to be seen at this moment.
Before I let you go, I want to talk about something a little closer to home. Former President Trump and his campaign say that they were briefed from U.S. intelligence on threats against him to him from Iran, that is. Why would Iran target Trump? What would be their motive there?
Well, I think it's pretty remarkable, first of all, that we know that Iran is doing this, and yet we've allowed we've given visas to the leadership of Iran outside of the Ayatollah Khamenei. They're here in New York City this week for the UN General Assembly, knowing that there are active plots by the Iranian government against our former and potentially future president is really unprecedented and something that should give us all pause. But I think that the fact remains that this is truly an unprecedented time. We've never seen such an array of attacks or attempted attacks against a president or presidential candidate. And I think it's important to note that in case you didn't think that President Trump's policies were effective against Iran, if this isn't a clear demonstration that they were, I don't know what is. They're terrified that President Trump is going to win and that he will come back into office and that he will reapply the pressure that he and we and his administration were applying during that period. It hurt them tremendously and actually gained us a lot of leverage that the next administration, the Biden administration, just gave away. So, like I said, if this doesn't show you how panicked they are at his potential to win the presidency again, I don't know what else would.
Simone, always great to be with you. Thank you so much for weighing in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, now to the campaign trail and the sprint to November. The two presidential candidates delivering speeches today on the economy. Former President Donald Trump in North Carolina and Vice President Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, good evening to you. Former President Donald Trump visiting a manufacturing plant in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and Vice President Kamala Harris in Pittsburgh giving a speech on the economy and manufacturing. Meanwhile, votes are already being cast, and November 5th, just 41 days away.
Former President Donald Trump delivers a speech in Mint Hill, North Carolina, at a company that makes water system parts, discussing tariffs.
So to the workers of this state, when you hear Kamala Harris attack my tariffs today, you wouldn't have anything left in this state if I didn't do what I did. This building would be now shuttered, closed, empty, no jobs, and now it's thriving.
Also, U.S. intelligence officials confirmed today they briefed Trump's campaign on Iranian threats against him.
But if I were the president, I would inform the threatening country, in this case Iran, that if you do anything to harm this person, we are going to blow your largest cities and the country itself to smithereens. We're going to blow it to smithereens. You can't do that.
Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, Vice President Kamala Harris speaks at the Economic Club of Pittsburgh.
I believe we need to grow our middle class and make sure our economy works for everyone.
And as Americans worry about high prices and the economy,
under my plan, more than 100 million Americans will get a middle class tax break. That includes $6,000 for new parents during the first year of their child's life.
Another hot issue, abortion. Harris telling a radio station she favored eliminating the Senate filibuster in order to codify Roe v. Wade. Senator Joe Manchin blasted that, saying, shame on her, calling the filibuster the holy grail of democracy, and that it's the only thing that keeps lawmakers talking and working together. And pro-life group Students for Life writes, going after the filibuster in the U.S. Senate to force a radical abortion agenda shows that the Democratic Party's claims to value democracy are fake news, and they are getting desperate.
And SBA Pro-Life America posted today, quote, Kamala Harris confirmed yesterday she wants to destroy the filibuster to enshrine all trimester abortion, end quote. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky makes a startling accusation during his speech today at the United Nations, saying Russia is planning to attack nuclear power plants in Ukraine.
Recently, I received yet another alarming report from our intelligence. Now, Putin does seem to be planning attacks on our nuclear power plants, and the infrastructure, aiming to disconnect the plants from the power grid.
Zelensky warns that an attack could risk nuclear disaster while also targeting heating for civilians this winter. Zelensky is meeting with President Biden at the White House tomorrow. The two are expected to discuss plans to end the war with Russia and the possible use of Western-supplied long-range weapons to target sites further inside of Russia. Well, Russia is lowering the threshold for a nuclear response, with Vladimir Putin adding that a nuclear nation supporting an attack on his country will be treated as an aggressor. He made the remarks during a meeting with Russia's Security Council. He did not specify if the Kremlin would respond to such an attack with nuclear weapons. This follows Moscow's warning to the U.S. and other NATO allies that allowing Ukraine to use Western-supplied long-range weapons for strikes on Russia would mean that Russia and NATO are at war. The Vatican Secretary of State issues some sharp criticism of the United Nations for promoting abortion and gender ideology. Cardinal Pietro Parolin made the remarks in an address at the UN Summit of the Future. He emphasized the need for promoting the dignity of the human person and voiced the Vatican's disapproval of the push for gender ideology and abortion, saying, quote, there is a need to rethink actions in a number of areas. Cardinal Parolin also said, quote, with reference to gender, the Holy See understands the term to be grounded in the biological sexual identity that is male or female. The government will not shut down. That's about the only thing that Republicans and Democrats have agreed upon lately. The House passed the 3-month funding bill to keep the government up and running until December 20th. It now moves on to the Senate, which expects to pass it later tonight. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with the very latest. Eric.
Well, good evening, Tracy. Yes, after tonight's votes, Congress is closing up shop until after the elections. But it's important to note that all they're doing is basically kicking the can down the road. The 3-month continuing resolution is expected to pass and head to the president's desk for signature. But both sides will battle again on the funding the government again just before Christmas.
There won't be a Christmas omnibus. As somebody asked me in the hallway a little while ago, will there be many buses? We don't want any buses. We're not going to do any buses, okay? We'll deal with that in the lame duck.
For now, the current continuing resolution will fund the government for 3 months, provide $231 million to the Secret Service, but doesn't include any additional funds for FEMA to deal with future emergencies.
House Democrats have now avoided a reckless Republican government shutdown on 5 different occasions to make sure that we meet the needs of the American people.
Republican Freedom Caucus members aren't happy. Congressman Chip Roy wanted the SAVE Act attached, the provision that would require proof of citizenship to vote. He called out Speaker Johnson, posting on X, quote, but guess what? If you don't fight, you'll get nothing, and that's what we just did. The only way to guarantee you're going to end up with a CR and omnibus in December is to do nothing, is to pick no fight. Republican senators also aren't happy.
This is well planned. It's what Americans need to realize is the White House, that Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi want this process. They love being able to write this continuing resolution and build their bridges to nowhere. I couldn't be more frustrated.
Freedom Caucus members tell me what they want are true budget cuts made, not this type of piecemealing governing that has characterized Congress for over a year. Tracy?
Well, Eric, I know you're also following the Senate report released today by a bipartisan group of lawmakers looking into the Secret Service lapses in former President Donald Trump's first assassination attempt. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I tell you what, the report was very startling. Bottom line, the report found that the Secret Service agents failed to take charge of decision-making for security over at the Butler, Pennsylvania event. The report found that some of the problems included the Secret Service failed to set up physical barriers around the rally that would have blocked the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crook's, view of President Trump. Also, the agents failed to have a plan on how to secure the building that the shooter was actually shooting from, and a lack of communication between agents regarding the shooter's movement. One lawmaker tells me that the report highlights what not to do if you're ever protecting a presidential candidate. Now, tomorrow, the task force will be looking at the assassination attempts against former President Trump. They plan to hold a hearing, and I'll have more on that hearing tomorrow, plus give you the latest findings of the report and also more reaction, that is, from lawmakers. Tracy?
All right. Thank you so much, Eric. Looking forward to that. All right. Now on to the weather. Tropical Storm Helene is now Hurricane Helen, and is rapidly intensifying as it moves toward Florida. Take a look at this right here at the battering that Cancun, Mexico took earlier today. Wow. Helen is expected to reach Category 3 status before making landfall in Florida. It is set to be the strongest hurricane to hit the U.S. in more than a year. Mandatory evacuation orders are in place for at least 15 coastal Florida counties. Okay, now to Ohio, where hundreds of residents near Cincinnati were forced to evacuate in the aftermath of the toxic train leak. On Tuesday night, a toxic chemical was leaking from one car's pressure release valve. Officials said earlier today that the leak has stopped. No issues with air quality have been reported. The impacted car was also removed. Now we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including Man of Letters, how a 1776 letter written by a Catholic saint could be yours if the price is right. We'll explain. Welcome back. A new report says a federal judge has blocked an attempt by New York's Attorney General to censor 2 pro-life pregnancy centers. The centers had been targeted after promoting abortion pill reversals. The pro-lifers filed a lawsuit saying Democrat Letitia James was guilty of threats and intimidation. The injunction is in effect while the lawsuit plays out. Tomorrow in New York, an auction house is offering a chance to buy an item that is nearly 250 years old and is directly related to a Catholic saint. Siegel Auction House will put up for sale a 2-page letter written in 1776 by Saint Junipero Serra. Though he wrote thousands of letters, very few are privately owned. Most are in collections in California and in Mexico. The letter is expected to sell for at least $100,000. This is pretty neat. And for more on this, let's turn to Dr. Matthew Bunson, Vice President and Editorial Director for EWTN News. He joins us in the studio. Great to see you,
Yeah,
Dr.
great
Bunson.
to be here.
So this is pretty neat. I mean, most people think of auctions, at least myself. I think of artwork or maybe jewelry, but not letters from a saint.
Right.
How rare is this?
Oh, it's pretty rare. First, you have to stipulate that because this is a handwritten letter by him, it has his signature. This is technically a second-class relic. So obviously the church is not in favor, in fact, opposes the selling of relics of any kind. So we'll set that aside. The reality is also that Junipero Serra is a saint, but he's also a major historical figure, not just in California, but across the nation. This is a very niche type of an auction. It's coming from the Vaquero collection, which is focused on the postal history of Alta California. So this is a series of letters that are being put up for sale that really cover the whole gamut of postal history. So again, it's very niche, and it's one of the reasons why I think it caught a lot of people's attention.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Talk to us about the letter itself and the historical significance.
Well, as you noted, it was written in 1776, in late July 1776. On the other side of the continent, just a few weeks before, was the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So this gives us an idea of some of the context of the history. What it is about is, ironically, the mail. Junipero Serra was concerned with getting communications. Now, let's remember, when we're talking about Alta California, we're talking about California, but we're also talking about parts of Arizona, all the way into Colorado. So it's an immense territory. And how they were communicating across this territory was a great concern to him, which is tied closely to the development of the missions in California.
I was going to ask you that.
So we're talking about 1,500 miles, basically, that couriers would have to travel. And he saw the missions as important way stops, not just for the evangelization of California, and we'll come back to that in a minute, but really for the communication throughout all of California.
And how communication has changed up until now, right?
Yes, exactly.
Until now, it's amazing.
But they had the same problems then that in some ways we do today, whether an email actually finds you.
There you go. Or sometimes your own mail, too. I've been looking for some mail lately. It has not come yet. He was really a prolific writer.
He was.
Where would people be able to find some of his other letters?
Well, his letters, as you noted, are in various collections, especially in California, the Huntington Library and Mission Santa Barbara. But this also gives us a really profound snapshot. It's just one letter, but it gives us a very clear idea of where his priorities were. And when we see that in all of his letters, this wasn't, for example, some undiscovered letter. We actually had the text of this previously from a great collection that the Franciscans put together. But it really reminds us of two things about Serra. One, that he's a saint. You can see in this letter that he's deeply concerned about the welfare of the California missions, the people who are going there, the colonists, but also the indigenous peoples. But then, like all great saints, he was practically minded. He had to have a genius for organization. You can see that in how he's plotting out strategically the locations and the future of the missions that led, of course, to the great 21-chain mission, the El Camino Real. So this is a great insight into him, but they are pretty rare.
Yeah, and talk to us a little bit more about his impact in California.
Yeah, well, we call him the Apostle of California with great justification. He's one of the most maligned figures, certainly in recent history, because of the clashes in 2020, but also the attacks, the anti-Catholic attacks on the history of the missions. Junipero Serra had one great concern in his life, and that was the evangelization of California and the people who lived there. But in doing that, he had one abiding motive, and that was love. He learned the languages of the indigenous peoples. He did everything he could to fight and to resist colonial opposition to them and mistreatment of them. So he is deeply maligned. So a letter like this gives us a chance to revisit a little bit about his authentic legacy and why he is called the Apostle of California.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It'll be interesting to find out who ends up buying it.
I'm sure we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. Thank you so much, Dr. Bunsen. Always great to be with you.
Great to be with you.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, small country, big mission. Pope Francis will head to Luxembourg on his 46th apostolic journey abroad. Pope Francis is about to embark on his 46th apostolic journey abroad. The small European nation of Luxembourg will be the Holy Father's first stop. In a recent interview with EWTN News, Cardinal Jean-Claude Ulrich of Luxembourg shared his hopes for the Pope's visit.
We are very happy to have Pope Francis. No? We are a very small church, a poor church in a rich country. Poor church, we are not very rich in money. But also, we are in a post-Christian society. We once used to be as Catholic as Ireland was. And like Ireland, not much has been left from that time. No? But we are an international church in Luxembourg. Half of our population are not citizens. 1/3 of the population is born in Luxembourg. So we have a migrant society, and we have thriving communities, Portuguese-speaking, English-speaking, French-speaking, Polish-speaking. And they are signs of hope for our church. But of course, if you have so many different parts of population, there is always the need for unity. And we have Our Lady of Luxembourg, patroness of the city and of the country, consoler of the afflicted. We enter into a year of Jubilee, 400 years of veneration of Our Lady of Luxembourg. So the Pope will open up this Jubilee. And the coming of the Pope, who can give unity to us when not Peter, who is in charge for unity in the Church? So it's really a great chance for a small church to have the visit of Pope Francis. And I'm looking forward to it.
Well, finally tonight, Pope Francis reminds us that the Lord protects us from being deceived by the devil.
È astuto. Lui ci fa credere che lui non esiste.
At the Weekly Talk, the Holy Father urged the faithful to not approach Satan, whom he likened to a dog on a chain. Pope Francis also warned of the dangers of pornography, saying that it is the language of the devil, and if we are not careful, even our computers can lead us to sin. Lastly, Pope Francis emphasized that the Lord's victory over the power of evil and sin gives us sure hope that we can overcome the devil's attempts to distract us. And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night, and God bless.